quarter, they were walking the ball up. Walk. They were just passing it around. They were just going through the mud, shooting shots, brick. And then the second quarter, CaitlinClark said,
"Oh, it's time to go rogue.
Oh, it's time to do my own thing. Pull up, bang. Pull up, bang. Pull up, bang. Turn around, fade away, midi, bang."
And again, 6 points. The Indiana Fever put up only 6 points in the opening quarter against a Phoenix Mercury team that entered the night with a 5-12 record. Not 16, not 60, just 6. Through almost 9.5 minutes of basketball, they had managed exactly 3 points. This is a roster featuring the Rookie of the Year frontrunner, one of the highest paid players in the league, and a coach who spent the offseason highlighting her championship pedigree. Yet somehow they finished an entire quarter with only 6 points on the scoreboard. But here is where the story takes a turn. What happened next was not Stephanie White's carefully crafted offense suddenly finding its rhythm. It was not some brilliant timeout adjustment or emotional locker room speech. What happened was CaitlinClark looked at the chaos unfolding around her, decided enough was enough, and completely changed the pace. She stopped casually walking the ball up the floor. She stopped running the standard set. She stopped waiting for permission. And suddenly, the Fever erupted for 35 points in the second quarter alone.
30-point game. I know you're on pace for that. I know you're on pace for a 30 and 10. I get it. But everybody needs to eat here. We're all inclusive here in Indiana. We need to make sure everybody eats. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sit you down and we're going to let Kelsey Mitchell get her points in the third quarter. Yeah! Woohoo! And I felt myself saying, man, why does this third quarter seem so different than the second quarter? Oh, because we're playing inclusive.
Again, watch that stretch one more time. That is not a designed play. That is not something the coaching staff practiced all week. That is CaitlinClark recognizing that sticking to Stephanie White's system was leading the team toward one of the ugliest losses of the season and deciding to seize control herself. Pull-up 3, splash. Another pull-up 3, splash. Step-back jumper, splash. Turnaround mid-range shot, splash. 4 straight possessions where she ignored the script. She did not wait for screens to form. She did not follow the structure of the set. She simply entered takeover mode and carried the entire offense on her back.
Clark finished the game 24 points, 9 assists with a plus 13. CaitlinClark played a good game. Can't really say anything negative about CaitlinClark's game today. When she did it Stephanie White's way, When she did it her way, oh, the offense was moving. What a coincidence. What a coinky dink. When you do it CaitlinClark's way, the team don't look too bad. They actually look passable. But when you do it Stephanie White's way, ooh, ooh. Stephanie White, just stay out the way. Just do us all a favor, Stephanie, and just stay out of the way. Please.
Now this is where things become even more fascinating. Entering the third quarter, CaitlinClark was on track for a 30-point, 10-assist night. She was completely rolling. She had personally transformed what looked like an embarrassing collapse into a comfortable lead. The offense was flowing. The crowd was energized. Everything appeared to be clicking perfectly. So naturally, Stephanie White kept her sitting on the bench for most of the third quarter, not because of foul trouble. Clark still had fouls available to use. She sat because Kelsey Mitchell needed chances to get her shots. Apparently, when your young point guard is carrying the team and saving the night from an ugly loss to a struggling Phoenix team, the priority becomes balancing scoring opportunities. Look at the minutes played. Kelsey Mitchell logged more minutes than CaitlinClark, despite Clark clearly being the engine behind the win. And notice what happened offensively while Clark sat. The Fever drifted right back into first quarter basketball. Slow tempo, predictable possessions, players standing around waiting for chances. The lead stopped growing. The momentum vanished because Indiana returned to trying to keep everyone satisfied rather than focusing on what was actually working. This has become a recurring pattern. Caitlin takes over. The offense becomes unstoppable. Then adjustments are made to redistribute opportunities. Instead of maximizing dominance, the focus shifts toward balance. The frustrating part is that this approach nearly cost them a home game against a team carrying a 5-12 record.
But we won the game. Let's take a look. We got CaitlinClark. Boom, pull up from 3. Splash. Then we do it again. Step back from 3. Splash. Bang. Then she had a heat check 3. The heat check 3 was disgustingly gross. she had a heat check 3 from like 40 feet out. Missed it, but damn. Then we have Dewana the scammer Bonner and Sophie Cunningham get into it. Don't point at me. Don't point at my face, Sophie. Sophie, don't point at me, Sophie. I'm sensitive, Sophie. Don't point at my face. Don't point at my face. And Sophie's like, yeah, I'm pointing at you. Oh, you again. Point at you again. Point at you again. Point at you again.
Then came the drama. Late in the game, emotions began boiling over. Sophie Cunningham and DeWanna Bonner exchanged words. Myisha Hines-Allen and Alyssa Thomas became involved. CaitlinClark found herself caught in the middle of the chaos and even picked up a technical foul after clapping during an exchange with Bonner. Officials spent what felt like an eternity reviewing plays. Myisha Hines-Allen was eventually ejected. The second half seemed endless because the action kept stopping every few possessions. And that tells you something important. This game was far closer than it ever should have been. Phoenix entered at 5-12. Indiana was playing at home with a roster talented enough to compete for a playoff spot. This should have been a comfortable victory from start to finish. Instead, tensions exploded in the fourth quarter because the Mercury still believed they had a chance. Why? Because Indiana spent the first quarter running Stephanie White's offense and scored 6 points. Then they spent the second quarter playing CaitlinClark's style and scored 35. Then they returned to spreading opportunities around in the third quarter, and the lead stopped growing. By the fourth quarter, a game that should have been a blowout had turned into a tense fight.
Are they going to rescind it? Probably not. But I had to guess. That's what the technical was for. Myisha Hines-Allen then gets ejected. Alyssa Thomas trying to bulldoze her way in there. Myisha Hines-Allen, get out of my way. Yeah. Hey, Myisha Hines-Allen, she wasn't playing. Myisha Hines-Allen not playing at all. Her and Alyssa Thomas got back and forth after that initial dust up with CaitlinClark and DeWanna Bonner. So they're just letting that carry over. It's all right, Myisha Hines-Allen. We fuck with you, Myisha. This was the CaitlinClark heat check I was talking about. Maybe tell a couple. Look at that. Nah, getting crazy here. Look at this play. CaitlinClark and Alyssa Thomas going for the ball. Alyssa Thomas throws an elbow. CaitlinClark gets called for a foul. Going for the ball. Alyssa Thomas throws an elbow. CaitlinClark gets called for the foul. If you take a look at this,
rewritten again. Take another look at that sequence involving Alyssa Thomas and CaitlinClark battling for a loose ball. Thomas throws an elbow. Clark ends up getting called for the foul. Watch the replay from another angle. The elbow misses, but the motion is still there. Yet Clark is the player penalized. That has been the story all season long. She receives superstar attention and superstar criticism, but not always superstar whistles. She gets bumped, grabbed, and pushed around. More often than not, she is the one ending up with the foul call. But here's the biggest takeaway. Despite the 6-point first quarter, despite sitting for stretches of the third while playing brilliantly, despite the endless reviews, technical fouls, and interruptions that dragged the game out forever, Indiana still won 86-77, and they won because CaitlinClark refused to continue doing what was not working and took over in the second quarter. She finished with 24 points, 9 assists, and a +13 rating. It was not a perfect performance, but it was an impactful one. More importantly, it was a winning one. When Clark was allowed to play freely, Indiana looked like a playoff team. When they returned to the slower system, they looked like one of the least effective offenses in the league.
Like 2 players on the Phoenix Mercury. Like the only 2 players, you know what I mean? Take a look at the Indiana Fever. We got Kelsey Mitchell, 22 points, shooting 20 shots. Dribbling with her head down. Chuck. Dribble. Chuck. Chuck. You can't make this up. Shooting 40% for Kelsey Mitchell. CaitlinClark, 8 for 17. 9 assists, only 3 turnovers. Again, Stephanie White put the handcuffs on her. Put the handcuffs on her in the third and said, you got to sit down in the third. We got to make sure Money Mitch gets off. And that's why Kelsey Mitchell's played 3 more minutes than CaitlinClark.
But this is where things become impossible to overlook. 17 games into the season, and we are still watching the exact same story play out. Every time CaitlinClark is allowed to play fast, attack aggressively, and trust her instincts, the Fever suddenly look dangerous. The moment they slow things down and force everyone to get touches, the offense starts looking completely stuck. Kelsey Mitchell attempted 20 shots to score 22 points. CaitlinClark took 17 shots and finished with 24 points and 9 assists. One stat line reflects efficient winning basketball. The other reflects volume scoring. Yet somehow Mitchell still played more minutes. Explain that. Then there is Aaliyah Boston. 8 points against a 5-12 Phoenix team. Alyssa Thomas took the ball away on the opening possession, and Boston never truly looked comfortable afterward. That is supposed to be one of your franchise cornerstones. And do not even start with the bench. 10 points, total 10. This group was supposed to provide energy, depth, and momentum. Instead, they contributed about as much offense as a halftime entertainment act. So what exactly did we learn? When CaitlinClark follows Stephanie White's system, the Fever score 6 points points in a quarter. When Caitlin decides she is tired of watching the offense struggle and takes over, they explode for 35. That is not coincidence. That is not luck. That is a giant flashing warning sign. The scary part? It keeps happening. Clark is not going rogue because she wants attention. She is going rogue because somebody has to rescue the offense. Look at the numbers. 9 assists. She is still creating opportunities for teammates. She is still making smart reads. The difference is she is doing it at full speed instead of playing basketball with the brakes on. That first quarter should have triggered alarms throughout the building. 3 points through nearly 10 minutes at home against Phoenix? That is the kind of offensive performance that makes fans start checking traffic reports before halftime. Instead, Clark saved the game, sat while the offense cooled off, and suddenly a matchup that should have been a blowout became a fourth quarter battle, and that is the problem. Phoenix entered with a 5-12 record. Indiana had the stronger roster, home court advantage, and the best player on the floor. This should have been decided by the third quarter. Instead, the Mercury hung around long enough to believe they could steal it. That is not championship basketball. That is survival basketball. Stephanie White's everyone eats philosophy sounds wonderful in interviews. Everybody gets touches. Everybody feels involved. Everybody gets opportunities. But wins do not appear in the standings because everyone felt included. Wins come from putting the ball in the hands of your best player and letting her take over. Right now, every time CaitlinClark gets freedom, the Fever look like a playoff team. Every time they turn the game into a group project, the offense falls apart. The talent is there. The pieces are there. The question is whether the coaching staff is willing to acknowledge what is staring everyone in the face. 6 points playing one way, 35 points playing another. That is not bad luck. That is a message. And unless something changes, Fever fans may continue watching the same frustrating script. CaitlinClark spends the first quarter being restrained. The offense struggles, panic begins, and then she has to put on a superhero cape and save the day once again.